This was the moment, the meeting, when David Cameron's National Security Council made up its mind that Britain would be prepared to back military strikes against Syria if the Cabinet, and crucially, if the Commons agreed tomorrow.
We met this afternoon and we decided unanimously that the use of chemical weapons by the Assad regime is unacceptable and that the world cannot stand by in the face of that.
Are we going to attack Syria, Mr. Hammond?
Inside Number 10, the Chief of the Defence Staff and the Defence Secretary presented the military options. The Attorney General argued that an attack could be within international law, and the Foreign Secretary explained why it was unlikely to get the backing of the United Nations. Tonight, though, everything has changed. MPs who are making their way back to Westminster from their summer break will not get a definitive vote on British military action against Syria tomorrow. Ministers feared a parliamentary defeat, so now they say they want to try to get UN backing first and that MPs can have another vote on another day. Here's one reason for that. UN weapons inspectors are still in the Syrian capital Damascus. Today, the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon called for them to be allowed to finish their work.
Give peace a chance. Give diplomacy a chance. Stop fighting and start talking.
Here's another, parliamentary arithmetic. Last night, Labour seemed to be supporting the government's position, but today they said they'd be prepared to vote against if ministers didn't wait for the evidence and didn't give MPs a second vote.
Labour's position is that the evidence of the UN weapons inspectors should be before the United Nations Security Council and before the House of Commons, ahead of any decision being taken by the Security Council and the House of Commons. We do not believe it is reasonable for the Prime Minister to ask the Parliament tomorrow to issue him a blank cheque in relation to military force in Syria.
The motion that MPs will now vote on tomorrow states that every effort should be made to secure a Security Council resolution backing military action before any such action is taken. Before any direct British involvement in such action, a further vote of the House of Commons will take place. The Foreign Secretary insists it isn't a U-turn, it is instead grown-up politics from a government desperate to get a consensus.
This is, after all, something on which the world should be able to unite. That the use of chemical weapons in the 21st century is unacceptable. And so we are making every possible effort to make sure the British Parliament can unite. So have we made an effort here to accommodate the concerns and questions of other parties? Yes, we have.
And here perhaps is the final reason the government have had to shift. The public is deeply sceptical about any British involvement in Syria. The latest poll suggests by 2 to 1.
I'm genuinely concerned about our foreign policy when it comes to the wider kind of Middle East area.
If we say that we don't tolerate chemical weapons anywhere in the world, then we need to do something about it. You can't just say that and then when somebody uses it, ignore it.
We can't keep being in the front all the time. You know, we haven't got the finances and the resources for that.
Britain really has to get involved, but it's just a case of not overstepping the mark.
Outside Downing Street earlier this evening, protesters gathered to campaign against British involvement in the war in Syria. What they didn't know was that inside, the Prime Minister had concluded he simply didn't have the political support he needed to press ahead. Not yet, at least.